approximately 7 p.m. this evening at the Compton terminal of the Blue Line, the MTA Blue Line, there was 2 deputies who were ambushed by a gunman in a cowardly fashion.
Violence erupts over the weekend as 2 police officers fight for their lives. This after being ambushed and shot in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, wildfires continue to ravage the West Coast, sending smoke billowing across the country. President Trump visits the area later today. And finally, New Orleans preps to test its levees for the first time since Hurricane Katrina as Hurricane Sally now inches towards that city. All that and so much more on this edition of News On. Happy Monday to you and welcome to News On. I'm Miranda. Thank you so much for joining us. A massive manhunt is underway after a violent ambush in Los Angeles that sent 2 deputies to the hospital. The man accused of shooting the 2 LA County Sheriff's deputies remains on the run. Meanwhile, we're learning more information about the deputies fighting for their lives. On Saturday night, 2 LA County Sheriff's Department deputies were shot and critically injured.
The 2 deputies were doing their job, minding their own business, watching out for the safety of the people on the train, and seeing someone just walk up and just start shooting on them. It pisses me off. It dismays me at the same time.
Authorities call the attack an ambush.
The suspect approached them from behind as the deputies were facing southbound in their patrol vehicle. Suspect came from the north. He walked along the passenger side of the car. He acted as if he was going to walk past the car, and then he made a left turn directly toward the car, raised a pistol, and fired several rounds inside of the vehicle, striking both of the sheriff's deputies. The suspect then fled on foot, northbound from the shooting scene and out of view.
Officials say the incident happened near a metro station in Compton. Video of that incident appears to show, again, a man walking up to the deputy's car. You can see it right there, and then firing several shots before running away. Again, you can see that on your screen. Authorities say both of those deputies, again, remain hospitalized but are expected to survive. Their names have not been released, but authorities say one deputy is a 31-year-old mother, the other a 24-year-old man. Both were reportedly sworn in to duty just 14 months ago.
One is a 31-year-old mother of a 6-year-old boy. Her husband is here with them. The other one is a 24-year-old, and parents are here. Girlfriend is here. They're both out of class 437, so they just graduated, and in fact, I swore them into office just 14 months ago. These are real people doing a tough job.
And on Sunday, deputies blocked off streets in that area searching for that suspect. The Sheriff's Department is offering a $100,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of that suspect, who again remains at large. President Donald Trump also reacting to the shooting, retweeting the Sheriff's Department video and commenting animals that must be hit hard, and by discussing the incident at his rally in Nevada.
As we begin tonight, our thoughts are with the 2 sheriff's deputies in Los Angeles who were fighting for their lives when a vicious criminal walked up to their vehicle and shot them at point-blank range. Tonight, we send our love and our support to their families, and we pray to God for their recovery. The radical left in America is waging open war on law enforcement.
Meanwhile, a Missouri police officer is recovering after getting shot during an attempted traffic stop. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department reports officers pulled a car over last night. The vehicle pulled to the side of the road but drove off shortly afterward. Police followed it, and that's when people inside the car started firing shots at the officers. A 35-year-old officer who has been a member of the force for 12 years was shot in the shoulder. He was taken to a hospital where he is listed in stable condition. The unnamed victim is the 9th officer to be shot in St. Louis just this year. The death toll continues to rise on the West Coast as nearly 100 fires have burned more than 4.5 million acres all across California, Oregon, and Washington. For much more on this, I'd like to welcome in our America's Voice News contributor, Ben Bergquam, who is joining us live now in California. You're also waiting for the president to arrive. You're in Sacramento, correct, Ben?
That's right, Miranda. We expect him any moment here to come and meet with sheriffs from different counties around the state that have been affected and folks that have been affected by the fires. Over 3.3 million acres just in California so far.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to you last week. It's just, there's so much smoke you can barely see. Can you kind of explain the conditions out there? I hear the air quality is just horrific.
Yeah, it is. I can kind of turn the camera around here and you can see everything is very hazy. Even here in Sacramento, we drove up. It's about a 3-hour drive from our hometown down where the creek fire is going on. Up here, and it's smoke all the way. Basically, the entire state of California is blanketed in a layer of particulate matter right now.
Yeah, you can see that. That almost looks like a dust storm that we're seeing right there on the screen. I know you can't see that, Ben, but
I do. Yeah,
you see it. Yeah. Wow.
In fact, that is actually what people don't understand is fires actually create their own weather. You'll get tornadoes or dust devils within the fires. You'll get lightning and heavy winds to the point where up in Huntington, where up by where we live, it was actually knocking trees over. The wind was so strong, and that was just from the wind that was created from the fires.
So obviously, the president has been responding to the wildfires, thanking the firefighters out there for all that they do. But he's also been very critical, as you know, of California, saying that they're not doing enough to prevent these fires. Meanwhile, you have, his opponent, Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden, saying that he credits the fires to climate change. What do people, and I know that you're a strong supporter of the president, but what do people in California think? And what do firefighters tell you?
Well, I've spoken to many. I've interviewed several firefighters in the last several days, and the consensus is what President Trump is saying. We live it. We've seen it coming for 30 years. The reason we're having these catastrophic wildfires is not because of climate change. It is because of a lack of forest management. We've allowed our forests to become overgrown. We haven't allowed timber harvesting. We haven't allowed grazing. We haven't allowed controlled burns. So we have 4 times the density of a healthy forest. On top of that, you had the bark beetles come in because we didn't have enough water. And now we have millions of dead trees. And even those trees, the radical environmentalists in California have not allowed us to remove. And so that
Welcome back to News On. The shooting of two Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies, in an apparent ambush, has prompted, as we mentioned earlier, a manhunt for a shooter as the deputies fight for their lives. This latest incident has once again highlighted the mounting tensions between the police and the people they've sworn to protect. So here to discuss how incidents like this impact police and, again, their ability to do their job effectively, I'd like to welcome in former California law enforcement officer Sergeant Mike McGrew, here to talk about these recent shootings based on his 31-year career as a police officer, major crimes detective, and sergeant. Sergeant Mike McGrew, thank you so much. We also have someone else joining us. Does someone want to care to tell me who's also joining us on camera as well? I would like to introduce you, but unfortunately I don't have your information. So who do I have the privilege of talking to? Dr. what?
My name's Dr. Courtney Williams, and I run an organization called 1776 Forever Free. And I'm in a backwards hat right now because we just got done doing a rally this past weekend of about 3,000 people. So I just flew in early. So absolutely.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you also, Sergeant. So, Sergeant, just want to get your reaction to what just happened over the weekend, what's transpired. As I mentioned, there's a manhunt underway because of this shooting. When you see incidents like this, what is your initial thought?
It's a very tragic incident. This is a time that's very difficult for police officers and law enforcement, and when we become a target, it just adds on another layer of stress that affects families, it affects all of our families, it affects the people doing the job. And, we'll continue to do the job. We'll continue to go out and put our lives on the line. I mean, there's some very heroic people of character that are out serving each community throughout our country right now. And they're doing things that nobody else would probably ever want to experience or do. And, we just appreciate those who give us support during these times, because I know that this is a small majority or small minority that is coming against law enforcement. I believe that most of the people are a silent majority, and it's time to step up and to start talking to the leaders in our communities about supporting law enforcement and those people who go out and do an amazing job every day. There's tens of thousands of heroic acts that happen across this country every day. None of them are being covered on the mainstream media, but we need to know that that's happening right now, and that these people they're being stretched thin, and this is a time that they really, really need the support of their communities. And the more that people speak out against them and say all cops are bad, or I've seen protests where they're saying shoot the cops, those are things that are just horrible to see and horrible for people to say. And so now it's time for the majority that's out there to speak up and step up and let their leadership know, hey, we do appreciate law enforcement. We do appreciate the job that they do, and we know that they keep us safe.
Dr. Cordy, I see you shaking your head there in agreement. Would you like to give your reaction to what's happened over the weekend?
I agree with what Sergeant McGrew said, Miranda. I just echo those sentiments. I think it's really unfortunate that we're creating a society that is a anarchist type of society where authority isn't respected. Because I'm a 40-year-old man. I served in the Marine Corps for 4 years. I work on tons of veterans in my office, and to see just this degradation in our society, this lack of respect, where there's these, I always say heroes aren't found in, spandex with shoulder pads catching footballs or throwing a basketball in a hoop. Those heroes are found on street corners late at night. They're away from their family. They're putting it all on the line. Our firefighters, our police, our special forces, our Marines, our Army, our Navy, over, in these foreign countries. And Chicago and St. Louis and these other areas, Los Angeles, are becoming like these foreign countries. Those heroes are found dodging bullets, wearing bulletproof vests, and people are not appreciating the sacrifice that these guys are putting on the line, like Sergeant McGrew. And it's sickening. It's disgusting. And then you got people like Sleepy Creepy Uncle Joe that are coming out, right? And he doesn't even know his own name most of the time. And he's already talking about assault bans on weapons. And this was a handgun that was used. So it's really sick. It's despicable, in my opinion.
But he has condemned it. He has, and so has his running mate. But Sergeant, putting the president aside and Joe Biden, what's the solution here? Because obviously we've seen an uptick of these protests turn violent. Officers feel like they have a target on their back. What's the solution here? Because the narrative is still out there that these police officers are some of them are really bad and they're killing blacks everywhere. What's the solution though? Because the narrative's already out there, right? So how do we reach some common ground? How do we actually come up with some kind of reform, if you will?
Well, I think common ground, what you just said is very important. And right now people are being forced to pick a side. They feel like pick a side. And where the conversations happen is in that neutral place. It's in a place where law enforcement can reach out to their communities. When folks talk about defunding the police, that's a bad idea. Because what's going to happen is the community-oriented policing programs and the school resource officer programs and those things that help us gain trust with the community, they'll be gone. We'll always have to answer the 911 calls, the emergency calls for service. And the less officers you have, the less opportunities you have to reach out to the community. And so I feel like just coming together and talking and building that trust is really an important thing. There's some incidents that are out there, like you said, the narrative that's out there it's not true. I've worked for 31 years. I worked with people of courage and character that did amazing things. They showed restraint in places that even put themselves at more risk. And people have to understand that when they see a video, that's not the whole story. There's much more to the story, and things that lead up to it, things that happen, things you can't see. And so I think people have to quit rushing to judgment when they see something and decide on the evidence. Just be patient and wait to see what happens. But in the meantime, reach out with the law enforcement. And I know each department wants to do this. They're open to talk to the community. So that's where I feel that solution
that needs to be done. We're running out of time, but Dr. Cordy, last minute to you to comment on this.
Well, I would just say, I agree with the sergeant again. I think education's a really important thing. My group, 1776 Forever Free, a lot of what we're doing on this Freedom Tour USA is educating people, trying to bring people from the left to understand that these police officers, they're not your enemy, right? You look at the stats out there, it's not a lot of, white on black crime. The stats are actually higher black on white as far as police officers and as far as statistics go. But this isn't about skin color. This is an election, and these are decisions about red, white, and blue. And do you want communism and anarchy, or do you want America to be what it's always been and what all of us believe? So I just think education is the big thing. We got to get the message out there. We got to start educating that our police have our back, and they're not the bad guy.
Dr. Cordy, Sergeant McGrew, thank you both for joining us here on News On. Pleasure to have you. Please come back.
Miranda.
And this time, I won't be surprised, Dr. Cordy. Thank you.
God bless.
All right, there is still much more to come here on News On. If you'd like to weigh in on some of these issues, again, a reminder, you can always reach out to us on social media, because we're going to be airing your voice coming up next. We asked you a question on whether or not you plan to vote in person or by mail. We're going to have some of your answers coming up. We're also going to be giving you the very latest on Hurricane Sally, again headed towards Louisiana, this time towards the southwest, putting Mississippi, parts of Mississippi and Louisiana in harm's way. We're going to get the very latest track with Weather Nation coming up. You're watching News On. Welcome back to News On. A judge grants a temporary restraining order forcing the United States Postal Service to stop mailing postcards in Colorado with information about voting by mail. The Colorado Secretary of State filed that lawsuit after she says the postcards contained the wrong information about voting in that state. In Colorado, every registered voter is automatically sent a ballot through the mail. The secretary says the card is confusing at best and can lead to voter suppression at worst. The United States Postal Service responded in a statement by saying, quote, "The card provides all-purpose guidance on the use of the mail and not guidance on state election rules." This is Colorado's second election-related lawsuit against the Postal Service this year. Last month, the state sued over delivery delays. Coming up, we're going to ask you whether or not you plan to vote in person or by mail and why. We'll share some of your responses when we air your voice. But first, in other news, concerns continue to mount about the possible consequences if there is an undercount in the 2020 census. So the count is set to end September 30th. Organizations nationwide are working to boost response rates before it's too late. There are also legal battles underway over a series of last-minute changes to the census. The census only happens every 10 years, so if the count is wrong, well, the effects could last, again, a decade or more. The U.S. ambassador to China is stepping down. According to a source, Terry Branstad is expected to exit Beijing sometime before Election Day 2020. Branstad has served as the ambassador there for more than 3 years. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo thanked him for rebalancing U.S.-China relations. Branstad holds a personal relationship with China's president, and that dates back decades. He's been involved in a spat between the State Department and China's state-run media, that's People's Daily, after the outlet refused to publish an op-ed written by him. Nearly 308,000 new COVID-19 cases were reported to the World Health Organization just in the past 24 hours. That is according to data collected by WHO. The total number of cases that have been reported from around the globe is now more than 28,500. The rise in newly reported cases, that's another record reported, again, to the World Health Organization just within the 24 period. The previous record was set just this last Sunday. The report also noted there were 5,500 additional COVID-19 deaths reported to the WHO in the past 24 hours, bringing the total number of deaths worldwide now to more than 917,000. Oracle and TikTok will partner for U.S. operations. This, according to a source very familiar with the matter. It's not exactly a sale, but it's meant to satisfy requirements from the Trump administration. So executive orders from the president require TikTok to spin off from its Chinese parent company. Microsoft says that company rejected its offer for TikTok's U.S. operations. Industry analysts say the sale would have been a big win for Microsoft. TikTok and its parent company have not yet returned requests for comment. Tropical depression number 20 has strengthened in the central Atlantic to become Tropical Storm Teddy. It is the 19th named storm of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. Actually, it would be the 20th. Teddy is forecasted to strengthen slowly and become a strong Cat 3 hurricane. It's expected to remain at sea at the moment, so it poses no threat to land. Let's pray that it stays out there. Meanwhile, though, Tropical Storm Sally, it's expected to make landfall tomorrow morning near New Orleans as a hurricane, potentially a Cat 2. Hurricane warnings have been issued for parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, along with life-threatening storm surge. Parts of Louisiana and the western panhandle of Florida could see some dangerous flash flooding. Joining us live now to give us an update from the ground just east of New Orleans is our very own Ben McMillan with Weather Nation. Ben, good to see you again. Wish it was under better circumstances, though. Louisiana kind of needs a break. We just got back from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and they need a break from this. Wouldn't you agree? What can you tell us right now?
Yeah, Miranda, good morning from the Mississippi coast. We're in Waveland, very close to Louisiana. And as you mentioned, they're still picking up the pieces in places like Lake Charles. Power is still out for many. We have people still in shelters. And now we're having to deal with another storm, Tropical Storm Sally, slowly moving its way towards the area, what is expected to become Hurricane Sally. So this could make those recovery and rescue efforts ongoing in parts of Louisiana even more difficult. It's going to make officials' job a lot harder there. We now have new states of emergency declared by Governor Reeves of Mississippi and officials in Louisiana, and we have a lot of issues with this storm because of its slow-moving nature. We're looking at rainfall totals from anywhere from 10 to 20 inches. We're looking at storm surge as much as 10 to 11 feet coming into the coastal areas. And then on top of that, we're looking at hurricane force strength winds. So a lot of issues for the folks here. President Trump and his administration also in contact with many of the states here along the coast to try to help them prepare.
Yeah, I can see right behind you, the water looks extremely choppy. It looks like it's definitely picking up. Again, I mentioned Katrina, obviously. That was just an horrific storm. So a lot of people concerned about the levees. Any information on how the state is preparing for that?
Photographer pan off to the right and give you a look here at just how shallow the coastline is. There isn't a lot of sand buildup before it hits the roadway here. This is South Beach Boulevard in Waveland. You can see a roadside park there off of the distance already taking on significant amounts of water. So that water level is just going to continue to rise, and that's why travel in these areas is so dangerous, why you have that evacuation order for Hancock County, Mississippi, where we're at here, and that is a mandatory evacuation order. By this evening into tomorrow, officials want everybody out of here because that water is just going to come up and make it very hard to travel and get out if you need to in time.
And from the people that you've had a chance to speak with, again, I know you just landed on the ground, but have you had a chance to talk to anybody that has planned to evacuate? Because I've evacuated before, and I know those lines can take forever if you wait too long. And again, the storm is expected to hit tomorrow.
We just spoke with one local resident, Coleman. We can send that interview into you to show the viewers, but he said he has only left once ever in his lifetime, left this area of Mississippi, and that was for Katrina. And he said he's worried about this one. Just the slow moving nature, like I said, could cause a lot of problems. We saw that with Hurricane Harvey back in the Houston area. So, you know, when you see these slower moving storms, it's going to create a lot more issues than we possibly could have with the faster moving ones. We really wish the best to the folks of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama.
Yeah, because we can already see the water coming up and the storm hasn't even hit. And you can see that flooding could be a potential issue. Hopefully yeah, go ahead.
24 to 36 hours out here. We're 24 to 36 hours out here. You can see traffic already having to navigate this water coming up over the roadway. So as you mentioned, definitely want to be vigilant, make sure people are following the latest news here on America's Voice and Weather Nation and staying ahead of this storm.
So what are your plans to stay safe? I know you got to cover the storm, but what preparations are you making to stay safe?
We've spoken with the National Weather Service. We've spoken with our meteorologists we work with here in the field, and we've found a safe location in Gulfport, Mississippi, which is just to the east of our location here in Waveland. So we'll be bringing the viewers live coverage there throughout the next few days here. You can keep it here on America's Voice for the latest. We'll be hopefully staying ahead of this and keeping safe and showing everyone what's going on out here.
Yeah, Ben McMillan, please be safe out there. Again, I'm concerned. I keep looking at the water behind you, and I see it creeping up on the roads. And like I said, the storm doesn't hit until tomorrow. So our thoughts and prayers that everyone is safe and adheres to these evacuation orders, and that they get someplace safe. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. Stay safe, my friend.
Yeah, see ya.
So you just heard from Ben McMillan again about the situation on the ground there in Mississippi and New Orleans, especially at risk for Hurricane Sally that is expected to make landfall tomorrow. We're going to have an update, though, on weather going all around the country coming up next with Weather Nation. Hopefully the West gets some much needed rain. You're watching News On. We'll be right back. Welcome back to News On. Wildfires in the west and a hurricane headed towards Louisiana and parts of Mississippi, as you just saw. For the very latest on weather conditions there and all across the country, let's send it over to Weather Nation's Project Crawford and Chelsea Ambrose.
I'm Weather Nation meteorologist Chelsea Ambrose, and we're following the top weather headlines from coast to coast, and one of those being Tropical Storm Sally bringing impacts to the coastline along the Gulf of Florida into areas of Alabama, Mississippi, and New Orleans. Louisiana could be dealing with some significant storm surge and rainfall totals going forward. The forecast does show it strengthening maybe to a Category 1 system before moving inland and weakening back to a tropical storm by early Wednesday. Still going to bring widespread impacts into areas as far north as Birmingham, Alabama through the rest of this week and into early Friday. Atlanta could be getting in on some heavy rain showers from this as well. Now, when we look at this particular area that's highlighted by this cone, this is not the size of the cone or the size of the storm. This is where the center of the storm could track. And so right now, that center could wiggle just a little bit, but either way, widespread flooding impacts are going to be felt. With the flooding impacts also come the water inundation. The onshore push from this system means we could have that storm surge. Lots of areas could be flooded just from the water being pushed on shore. Now, this is a slow moving system, so the slower it moves, the longer that water has a chance to move on shore. When we look at the amount of storm surge that could be coming in, areas just south of New Orleans out into the Plaquemine Parish, we could see anywhere from 7 to 11 foot storm surge, meaning water inundation up to 7 feet, if not higher. Gulfport 4 to 7, even Lake Pontchartrain 4 to 6. As you get farther from the center, still have that chance for storm surge, but it is going to be a little bit lower as the winds are a little bit weaker. Still have those chances for hurricane force winds, hurricane warnings, New Orleans, Gulfport. All of the orange areas are tropical storm warnings that remain in effect. Now, again, the flooding is also another factor from just the rain showers alone, and we have flood watches. More of those flood watches could be implemented throughout the day today and into the day tomorrow as that system continues to work its way to the north. Now, we'll be following this for the next couple of days, but we're also following the ongoing fire concerns, Patrick.
Yeah, the fire just doesn't want to let up, the threat at least across the western U.S. Thank you so much, Chelsea. We're looking at the fire outlook for Monday. We've got elevated and critical fire weather conditions into Oregon, Nevada, across Idaho and Montana, where we're going to be dealing with just those dangerous conditions. Fires that are already ongoing. There's not going to be any help from Mother Nature to get those fires out. Firefighters working so hard to keep these fires in check, but there's still going to be that risk. Red flag warnings into Oregon, Northern California, across a good portion of Montana, Wyoming, and western parts of South Dakota. Just look at the smoke and how it's filling the atmosphere. We've got smoke from these fires out west pushing all the way into the Great Lakes. So that smoky forecast, it's going to continue for a lot of areas, especially in the northwest and down into California and Nevada, where you see some of those brighter colors. That's when it is going to be on the thick side. That's the thick, dense smoke. We've got dense smoke advisories into Oregon and California due to this setup for today. Now, when we're looking at that ridge, it is going to continue to stay in the main pattern for this forecast, but eventually we're going to get some breaks in that ridge into the eastern Pacific. We'll have a couple of waves of energy that want to move on shore. Right now, it looks like they're just going to hang out in the open Pacific waters, but still send a lot of cloud cover, at least into western Washington, western Oregon. So this will help to impact those fire weather conditions there, but still very dry, not much rain out into Montana, into Idaho, and into Wyoming. Still going to stay on the dry side, meaning that fire weather threat not going anywhere. It's going to continue to stay in those areas. Eugene, Oregon, maybe a chance for some light rain Tuesday, but better shower chances arriving by the later part of the week and into the weekend, so that'll help out with the fire weather threat. Northern California, though, staying dry for cities like Redding all the way through Thursday. That's the very latest weather information here. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. So we always want to know, what do you think? That's what we want to know. You have a voice, and guess what? We want to hear it. It's why we're called America's Voice. So stick around. We asked the question whether or not you're going to vote in person or if you're going to do so via mail. We're going to have some of your answers and your reasons for doing so coming up right after the break. You're watching News On. We'll be right back. Welcome back to News On here at America's Voice News. Our goal is to give you a voice. Simply join our community platform, which you can find on our website at americasvoice.news, or you can reach out to us on social media, submit your comment or question, and guess what? We may air it on this very program. So last night we asked you, with the election being just 50 days away, we wanted to know how you plan to vote. First, we heard from Lori, who reached out to us and let us know that she plans to vote in person, but that she had requested a mail-in ballot twice and has not received it. She also said that other areas in Virginia received mass-mailed ballot requests with return envelopes with wrong addresses. That's not good. She also expressed concern that those votes won't make it into the registrar's office. Thank you so much, Lori, for your comment. If you're experiencing something similar, please contact us. We want to know. All right, let's go to our next comment. This one comes from Chongo, who says that he will be voting in person because Hawaii, he says, has a handful of early voting locations. He says he'll take advantage of the access to those locations. It's great to see you take advantage of some of those options. Our next comment comes from, well, actually a handful of commentators. They all seem to be in agreement. So Melissa, Adrian Rivera, and Robert Young all chimed in to let us know what they will be voting, that they will be voting in person. It seems like quite a few of you plan to head to the polls to do your civic duty this November. And finally, Intellectually Honest wrote in on Twitter to tell us that he too will be voting in person. He also cited the reason why. Let's take a look. The first is because, according to them, that's part of the American experience. And the second is that he believes that voting in person gives his vote the highest possible chance of actually getting counted. Thank you so much for submitting your comments. There's still time, so we'd love to hear from you. Again, you can find us, Miranda Khan, on Facebook. You can also reach out to me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Cloud Hub, Parlay, you name it. We are all over the place. You can also reach out directly to America's Voice. We highly encourage you to download the app. Again, if you haven't already, America's Voice News, you can do that and catch some of the segments that you may have missed, or watch us wherever you want when you're on the go. So we always love to hear from you. Our next question we're going to be posting actually today, if you haven't checked it out. This one actually comes from a viewer, Anthony Britton. He's commented before. You can look for that again on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Cloud Hub, Parlay, and LinkedIn. So check it out. All right, there is still much more to come. The Election Committee at the National Toy Hall of Fame has spoken, and a handful of your childhood favorites are about to be inducted. Did yours make the cut? Look at this. I feel like I'm getting flashback here. Am I the only one? Sorry, Bingo, Risk, Light Bright? Do you agree? We're going to be naming some of those toys coming up right after the break. You're watching News On. We'll be right back. Welcome back to News On. I'm Miranda Khan. Here's a look at some of the lighter stories that are making headlines today. Next time you visit a JCPenney store, it won't just be in the mall. It could be actually owned by the mall. Yeah, so mall operators Simon Property Group and Brookfield Property Group have an agreement to buy the 118-year-old department store out of bankruptcy. The deal is worth $1.75 billion. Penny's has been struggling for years and hasn't had a really profitable year since the year 2010. The COVID pandemic hit the company hard, forcing it to declare bankruptcy like many other retailers. Malls in general, though, have been facing declining foot traffic for years. Malls with obvious vacancies tend to fare worse, so operators have this incentive to keep large retailers afloat. So the National Toy Hall of Fame just unveiled 12 toy finalists competing for induction this year. You ready? Take a look. They include playthings as simple as, sidewalk chalk, and as high-tech and innovative as Tamagotchi. So Baby Nancy, wire horses, My Little Pony, and games like Bingo, Yahtzee, Risk, Jenga, and Sorry are also contenders. Light Bright, used to love that, and Masters of the Universe round out the list. The National Selection Advisory Committee will choose 3 submissions. All 3 toys will be chosen by fans. So if you'd like to let your voice be heard, you can vote for your favorite finalists through September 16th at toyhalloffame.org. Again, that's toyhalloffame.org. Strongest National Toy Hall of Fame in Rochester, New York will announce the final 2020 inductees this November 5th. And thanks to Walmart, getting those toys delivered could soon be a lot easier, and that's because Walmart is working towards making it easier for you to shop from home. The major retailer has launched a drone delivery pilot program. Right now, testing is underway in North Carolina. That's so cool looking, isn't it? It's focusing on delivering household essential items and certain grocery products. The drones are controlled via the cloud. Officials at Walmart say it will be a little bit before millions of products will be delivered by drones. So here's a pretty cool story. NASA is looking for companies to mine the moon for resources. Yeah, talk about out of this world. Pun totally intended there. The companies would collect rocks and dirt from the moon, then sell them to NASA. The program will be available to both U.S. and international companies. It's part of a technology development program that the agency says will help ensure safe and sustainable lunar exploration in the future. NASA is working aggressively towards its goal of landing the first woman and next man on the moon by the year 2024. Happen before you know it. For companies that do win a bid, NASA expects to pay anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 for 50 to 500 grams of lunar material. The agency says companies will also be able to set prices in their bids. The nation's oldest World War II veteran is now just a little bit older. Lawrence Brooks turned 111 over the weekend. The National World War II Museum says he got a serenade and aerobatics and a military flyover for his birthday. He watched from his porch in New Orleans. Brooks also got about 10,000 birthday cards thanks to a public campaign. I think he's earned it. Brooks was part of a predominantly African-American battalion during the war. The museum says his rank was private first class. And we thank him for his service. 111. Wow. And that will do it for this edition of News On. As always, just a reminder, you can follow us on social media and, of course, join our community page on our website. And don't forget to download, easy for me to say, the app so you can take us on the go. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.